On a frigid December night in Chicago, 2023, 19-year-old Sophia Martinez stood trembling at the iron gates of Vincent Blackwood's estate, clutching a 3-month-old baby girl wrapped in a threadbare blanket against her chest. Blood from a fresh cut above her eye mingled with tears as she pressed the intercom button, offering her daughter to the most feared crime boss in the city with words that would alter 3 lives forever. The security cameras captured her desperate plea, "Please, I can't take care of her anymore," as armed guards surrounded her in the falling snow. Never before had the ruthless Vincent Blackwood, responsible for countless deaths across the Midwest, faced a decision that would shake the foundations of his empire so profoundly. This is the story of how a baby's cry pierced through decades of violence and silence. Subscribe now to discover how a desperate mother's sacrifice transformed a killer into the one thing he never thought he could be: a father. The mansion loomed before her, a Gothic monstrosity of stone and iron rising from the snow-covered grounds like something from a nightmare. Sophia Martinez clutched her baby tighter against her chest, trying to shield little Isabella from the bitter December wind that cut through her thin jacket and made her teeth chatter. The 3-month-old whimpered softly, as if sensing her mother's desperation. Security cameras tracked Sophia's every move as she approached the imposing gates, her sneakers crunching through fresh snow. She'd learned from whispers in her neighborhood that Vincent Blackwood, the man who controlled Chicago's underworld with ruthless efficiency, had recently lost his wife. The rumors claimed he was devastated, a side of him no one had ever seen before. Sophia took a shaky breath and pressed the intercom button with a trembling finger. "State your business," came a gruff male voice, devoid of warmth or welcome. "I need to see Mr. Blackwood," Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, it's important." A pause. "Mr. Blackwood doesn't take unscheduled visitors." "Tell him." Sophia swallowed hard, looking down at Isabella's face, heart-shaped and perfect with a dusting of dark hair. "Tell him I have something he wants. Something he lost." Another pause, longer this time. Then the gates began to slide open with the low hum of hydraulics. 2 armed men materialized from the shadows of the property, their hands resting on holstered weapons as they approached. Sophia instinctively turned her body to shield her baby. "Arms out, legs apart," one of them ordered. "I have a baby," Sophia protested, her voice breaking. The men exchanged glances. "Just the bag, then," the taller one said, indicating the small diaper bag slung over her shoulder. Sophia carefully handed it over, watching as they rifled through baby bottles, diapers, and the few clothes she'd managed to pack. Finding nothing threatening, they nodded toward the house. "This way, no sudden movements." The walk up the curved driveway felt endless. The mansion grew larger with each step, its windows like watchful eyes. 2 more guards flanked the massive front doors of polished mahogany, which swung open as they approached. The entrance hall was a cathedral of marble and crystal, so vast and opulent that Sophia momentarily forgot her purpose. A chandelier the size of her entire apartment hung overhead, casting prismatic light across the space. The temperature change was immediate, from biting cold to enveloping warmth, and Isabella stopped whimpering, her tiny face relaxing. "Wait here," one of the guards instructed, disappearing through a doorway. Sophia stood awkwardly in the center of the hall, trying not to drip melting snow onto the gleaming floor. Isabella's eyes, dark and curious, took in the sparkling lights above. "What kind of person lives like this, Bella?" Sophia whispered, bouncing gently to keep her daughter calm. "Maybe I was right. Maybe you'll be better off here after all." The sound of approaching footsteps silenced her. Sophia straightened her spine, summoning what little dignity she had left as Vincent Blackwood entered the hall. He was taller than she'd expected, broad-shouldered and immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than everything Sophia had ever owned. His hair was black with distinguished streaks of silver at the temples, his face a study in hard angles and cold calculation. But it was his eyes that made Sophia's breath catch, gray as a winter storm and utterly devoid of mercy. "I'm told you have something for me." His voice was deep and controlled, with the faintest trace of an accent she couldn't place. "Something I've lost." Sophia's carefully constructed plan began to crumble under that merciless gaze. What had seemed like desperate inspiration now felt like madness. But there was no turning back. "Mr. Blackwood, my name is Sophia Martinez." She fought to keep her voice steady. I heard about your wife, about what happened to her and your baby." His expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in those gray eyes. "Proceed very carefully, young woman." Sophia swallowed hard. "I have a daughter, Isabella. She's 3 months old." She gently adjusted the blanket to reveal the baby's face. "I can't take care of her any more. I have nowhere to go, no money, no family." Vincent's gaze dropped to the infant, his face still unreadable. I thought maybe you would want her." The words tumbled out now, unstoppable. "You lost your baby, and I can't give Isabella what she needs, but you can. You could give her everything." A silence so profound it seemed to have physical weight settled over the hall. Vincent Blackwood stared at her with an expression that made Sophia's knees weak with fear. "Are you attempting to sell me your child?" His voice was soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. "No," Sophia gasped. "No, I wouldn't. I just thought you could exploit my personal tragedy for financial gain. It wasn't a question." "I don't want money," Sophia insisted, tears welling in her eyes. "I just want Isabella to be safe, to have a chance. Please, look at her." Vincent's gaze returned to the baby, who chose that moment to wave a tiny fist in the air, her dark eyes wide and alert. "Marco," Vincent said, not looking away from the child. One of the guards stepped forward. "Sir?" "Call Dr. Reeves. Tell her to come now." "Yes, sir." The guard withdrew, already pulling out a phone. Vincent returned his attention to Sophia. "You'll stay until the doctor arrives. She'll examine the child." "She's healthy," Sophia said quickly. "I've taken her to all her checkups. I have her medical records in my bag." Vincent ignored this. "Mrs. Holland," he called, and an older woman in a simple black dress appeared as if conjured from thin air. "Sir, prepare the blue guest room for Ms. Martinez and her child, and find something suitable for her to wear." His gaze swept over Sophia's worn jeans and stained jacket with barely disguised distaste. "Right away, sir." "Wait," Sophia said, confusion overriding her fear. "I don't understand. You want me to stay?" Vincent Blackwood's expression was inscrutable. "You arrived at my home with a proposition, Ms. Martinez. I haven't accepted or rejected it yet." He turned to leave, then paused. "One question. The child's father?" Sophia's face hardened. "Not in the picture. He disappeared when he found out I was pregnant." Something like grim approval flickered across Vincent's features. "Mrs. Holland will see to your needs. We'll speak again after the doctor's examination." With that he was gone, leaving Sophia standing in the vast hall, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life or finally done something right for her daughter. Mrs. Holland, who Sophia quickly realized was the housekeeper, led them upstairs with brisk efficiency. The blue guest room turned out to be a suite larger than any apartment Sophia had ever lived in, with a sitting area, massive bathroom, and bedroom dominated by an elaborately carved four-poster bed. "There's a bassinet in the closet," Mrs. Holland said, opening a door to reveal what Sophia would have called a small room rather than a closet. "Mr. Blackwood's sister visited with her infant last year." Sophia nodded mutely, still trying to process the sudden turn of events. She'd come here ready to hand over her baby and walk away, a plan born of desperation after being evicted from her apartment that morning. Instead, she was being treated like a guest. "The doctor will be here within the hour," Mrs. Holland continued, pulling out the bassinet. "There are clean towels in the bathroom if you wish to freshen up. I'll bring some suitable clothing shortly." "Thank you," Sophia managed. "Mrs. Holland? What happened to Mr. Blackwood's wife and baby?" "I only heard rumors." The housekeeper's face closed like a shutter. "That's not for me to discuss. Mr. Blackwood values his privacy." She moved toward the door. "Ring if you need anything. The button is by the bed." Left alone with Isabella, Sophia sank onto the edge of the plush bed, cradling her daughter close. "What have I done, Bella?" she whispered. "I thought I was giving you a better life, but I've brought you into a monster's lair." because despite the luxury surrounding them, Sophia harbored no illusions about Vincent Blackwood. Everyone in Chicago knew his name, knew what he was capable of. His legitimate businesses, shipping, real estate, nightclubs, were just the surface. Beneath ran rivers of blood money from drugs, weapons, and God knew what else. And yet, what choice did she have? Her minimum wage job at the diner barely covered formula and diapers. Her landlord had thrown them out after she fell 3 months behind on rent. Her parents had disowned her when she refused to give the baby up for adoption through their church. Isabella deserved better than homeless shelters and food banks. Sophia carried her daughter into the bathroom, gasping at the marble expanse with its sunken tub large enough for 4 people. She ran warm water in the sink and gently cleaned Isabella's face and hands with a soft washcloth, then changed her diaper using supplies from her meager bag. "There," she murmured, kissing Isabella's forehead. "All fresh for the doctor. We need to make a good impression, don't we?" She caught sight of herself in the mirror and winced. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her long black hair hung limp and unwashed. The cut above her eye, a parting gift from her now ex-boyfriend when she'd refused to let him sell her phone for drug money, had crusted over with dried blood. She looked exactly like what she was, a desperate teenage mother at the end of her rope. Careful not to get her bandages wet, Sophia washed her face and hands, then combed her fingers through her hair in a futile attempt to improve her appearance. A knock at the door announced Mrs. Holland's return with an armful of clothing. "These should fit well enough," the housekeeper said, laying them on the bed. "The doctor has arrived. She'll see you in the small sitting room downstairs when you're ready." Sophia quickly changed into the offered clothes, a simple gray sweater and black pants that felt softer than anything she'd ever worn. She transferred Isabella into a clean onesie from her bag, wrapped her in the new blanket Mrs. Holland had provided, and followed the housekeeper downstairs. The doctor, a petite woman with silver-streaked black hair and kind eyes behind stylish glasses, was waiting in a room lined with bookshelves. Vincent Blackwood stood by the fireplace, his posture rigid and face unreadable. "Ms. Martinez, this is Dr. Reeves," he said by way of introduction. The doctor smiled warmly. "Let's have a look at this little one, shall we?" The examination was thorough but gentle. Dr. Reeves checked Isabella's reflexes, listened to her heart and lungs, examined her eyes, ears, and throat, all while maintaining a soothing patter of baby talk that kept Isabella calm and curious, rather than frightened. "She's in excellent health," Dr. Reeves announced finally. "Good weight, good muscle tone, all developmental markers right on track. You've taken very good care of her, Ms. Martinez." "Thank you," Sophia said, relief washing through her. She'd been terrified the doctor would find some flaw, some evidence of her inadequacy as a mother. "I'd like to check you as well, if you don't mind," Dr. Reeves added, nodding toward the cut on Sophia's forehead. "I'm fine," Sophia said automatically. "That needs stitches," the doctor countered firmly, "and you appear malnourished and exhausted." Vincent, who had been silently observing from across the room, spoke up. "You will allow Dr. Reeves to examine you, Ms. Martinez? I need to know the full picture of what I'm potentially involving myself in." Reluctantly, Sophia submitted to the examination, wincing as Dr. Reeves cleaned and properly dressed the cut on her forehead. "You should be eating more, especially if you're breastfeeding," the doctor admonished gently. "I'm not anymore," Sophia admitted. "I couldn't produce enough milk. I've been using formula." Dr. Reeves nodded without judgment. "Get some rest, eat properly, and take care of that cut. It shouldn't scar if you keep it clean." She packed up her bag and turned to Vincent. "May I speak with you privately?" They left the room, leaving Sophia alone with Isabella and her swirling thoughts. What was happening? She'd expected to be thrown out, or worse, not given a luxurious room in medical care. The initial plan had been simple, if heartbreaking. Give Isabella to Vincent Blackwood, a man with unlimited resources who had recently lost a child of his own, then disappear and start over somewhere else, knowing her daughter would want for nothing. Now, she didn't know what to think. Vincent and Dr. Reeves returned after what seemed like an eternity. The doctor smiled kindly at Sophia, patted Isabella's head gently, and departed with a promise to check in again soon. Vincent took a seat across from Sophia, his face still inscrutable. Dr. Reeves informs me that while your child is healthy, you are not. She believes you've been sacrificing your own nutrition to provide for your daughter. Sophia looked down at Isabella, now sleeping peacefully in her arms. I did what I had to do. Indeed. Vincent studied her for a long moment. Here is what will happen now, Ms. Martinez. You and your daughter will remain here as my guests for 1 week. During that time, you will recover your health and we will evaluate the situation. Evaluate? Sophia echoed, confusion evident in her voice. You came here offering to give me your child, Vincent said, his tone businesslike. That is not a transaction to be entered into lightly, by either party. I didn't mean it as a transaction, Sophia protested. Vincent's expression hardened slightly. Everything in life is a transaction, Ms. Martinez. You're offering something of value and expecting something in return, even if that something is simply the peace of mind, knowing your child will be cared for. Put that way, Sophia couldn't argue. 1 week, Vincent continued. You will stay, you will rest, you will eat. We will discuss terms at the end of that period. He stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Mrs. Holland will see to anything you need. Mr. Blackwood, Sophia called as he reached the door. The rumors? About your wife and baby. Are they true? Vincent paused, his back to her, shoulders tight with tension. My wife died in childbirth 6 months ago, he said, his voice so low Sophia had to strain to hear it. The child, a daughter, survived for 12 hours before joining her mother. The raw pain in those few words pierced Sophia's heart. I'm sorry. Vincent left without another word, leaving Sophia to wonder what kind of man he truly was. The ruthless crime lord whispered about in fearful tones throughout the city, or the grieving husband and father whose loss echoed in the vast emptiness of this mansion. The first 3 days passed in a blur of unexpected luxury and rest. Mrs. Holland ensured Sophia ate regular nutritious meals. A young woman named Elena was assigned to help with Isabella, allowing Sophia to sleep uninterrupted for the first time in months. Her room was stocked with everything Isabella might need: diapers, formula, clothing, toys, all of the highest quality. Vincent Blackwood remained a distant figure, glimpsed occasionally in hallways or through doorways, always engaged in hushed conversations with hard-faced men in expensive suits. Sophia learned from Elena that Vincent rarely spent time in the main house anymore, preferring the solitude of the guest house on the far side of the property, where his wife, Catherine, had planned to create a nursery. On the 4th evening, Sophia was sitting in a comfortable chair by the window of her suite, watching snow fall gently outside, while Isabella slept in the bassinet beside her. A knock at the door revealed Mrs. Holland. Mr. Blackwood requests your presence in the study, the housekeeper announced. Helena will stay with the baby. Heart pounding, Sophia followed Mrs. Holland through the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion to Vincent's study, a masculine space of dark wood, leather, and books that smelled of expensive cologne and old paper. Vincent stood at a large window overlooking the snow-covered gardens, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He turned as Sophia entered, gesturing for her to sit in one of 2 leather chairs positioned before a crackling fire. You look better, he observed, taking the seat opposite her. Dr. Reeves will be pleased. Thank you for everything, Sophia said awkwardly. Isabella is thriving here. Vincent nodded, his expression thoughtful. Tell me about yourself, Ms. Martinez. Not the desperate young mother who appeared at my gate, but who you were before. Sophia fidgeted with the sleeve of her borrowed sweater. There's not much to tell. I grew up in Pilsen. My parents are very religious, very traditional. I was a good student, planned to be the first in my family to go to college. Then I met Ryan my senior year of high school, got pregnant right after graduation, and, well, she shrugged. My parents gave me an ultimatum: give the baby up or get out. I chose Isabella. And the father? This Ryan? Sophia's mouth twisted bitterly. He stuck around for about 2 months, long enough to spend what little savings I had, steal my car, and develop a pretty serious drug habit. Last I heard, he was crashing with friends somewhere in Indiana. Vincent's expression remained neutral, but something cold and calculating flickered in his eyes. "You chose a difficult path." "I chose my daughter," Sophia corrected. "I don't regret that. I regret not being able to give her what she deserves." "And what does she deserve, in your estimation?" Sophia thought for a moment. "Security, opportunities, love, the chance to become whoever she's meant to be without poverty, limiting her options." Vincent nodded slowly, as if she'd passed some kind of test. "Your background check came back clean." "My what?" Sophia blinked in surprise. "You didn't imagine I would consider taking custody of a child without thoroughly investigating the mother, did you?" Vincent raised an eyebrow. "No criminal record. Good academic performance until you dropped out. Consistent employment, though at menial jobs. Several evictions, but no complaints from landlords about property damage or disturbances." Sophia felt a flush of embarrassment and indignation. "You've been investigating me?" "Of course." Vincent sounded almost amused at her naivety. "I investigate everyone who enters my life, Ms. Martinez, most far more extensively than you." A chill ran down Sophia's spine at the casual reminder of who this man was and what he was capable of. "I have a proposal for you," Vincent continued, setting his drink aside. "Not the arrangement you initially suggested, but one that might better serve all parties involved." Sophia waited, heart hammering. "Remain here with Isabella as part of my household. You will have your own suite in the East Wing, a monthly allowance, and access to educational opportunities should you wish to continue your schooling. Isabella will have the best of everything: education, health care, opportunities. In return, you will allow me to legally adopt her, giving her my name and making her my heir." Sophia stared at him, momentarily speechless. "You want us both to stay? I don't understand." "It's quite simple," Vincent said, his tone still businesslike. "Isabella is an infant. She needs her mother. Separating you would be unnecessarily traumatic for the child. Additionally, this arrangement protects my interests. If you were to leave and later regret your decision, you might attempt to reclaim her, creating a messy legal situation I prefer to avoid." "So I'd be—" "What? Your employee?" "A member of my household," Vincent corrected, "under my protection. Isabella would be my daughter legally, but you would remain her mother in all practical ways." He leaned forward slightly. "Consider what this means for you, Sophia. No more struggling to pay rent or buy formula. No more working multiple jobs just to survive. You could finish your education, pursue a career, while knowing Isabella wants for nothing." The offer was so unexpected, so far beyond what Sophia had dared to hope for, that she couldn't process it immediately. Stay with Isabella, but in this world of wealth and privilege, become part of Vincent Blackwood's household with all the danger that might entail? "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would you do this?" Something shifted in Vincent's expression, a momentary crack in his composed facade that revealed a glimpse of the grief beneath. "My wife wanted a child more than anything in the world," he said quietly. "She decorated the nursery herself, hand-painted the walls with a garden scene, spent hours choosing just the right furniture, the softest blankets. She never got to see our daughter open her eyes." He fell silent for a moment, and Sophia held her breath, afraid to break the spell of his unexpected vulnerability. "I'm not a good man, Ms. Martinez," Vincent continued, his voice regaining its usual controlled tone. "I've done things that would horrify you. But Catherine, she saw something in me worth loving. She believed I could be a good father." His gray eyes locked with Sophia's. "I'm offering you and Isabella a life of security and privilege. In return, you're offering me the chance to fulfill a promise I made to my wife as she lay dying, that I would be the father she believed I could be." The raw honesty of his words stunned Sophia. For the first time, she saw Vincent Blackwood not as the terrifying crime lord of Chicago, but as a man haunted by loss and seeking redemption. "I need time to think," she said finally. Vincent nodded, unsurprised. "You have until the end of the week, as agreed." He rose, signaling the end of their meeting. "One more thing, Ms. Martinez. This arrangement, should you accept it, comes with certain requirements: absolute loyalty, absolute discretion. You will see and hear things in this household that must never be spoken of outside these walls. Do you understand what I'm saying?" The implicit threat was clear. "I understand," Sophia said quietly. "Good." Vincent moved toward the door. "Consider carefully. This offer won't be repeated." Sophia returned to her room with her mind spinning. Elena sat in the rocking chair, a sleeping Isabella cradled against her chest. "She's been an angel," Elena whispered, carefully transferring the baby to Sophia's arms. "Thank you," Sophia murmured, gazing down at her daughter's peaceful face. What would Isabella's life be like growing up in Vincent Blackwood's world? Would she be safe? Happy? And what would it mean for Sophia to bind their lives to a man whose business was violence and fear? Yet the alternative, continuing their precarious existence, one missed paycheck away from homelessness, never knowing if she could provide Isabella with her next meal, seemed unbearable in comparison. Sophia carried Isabella to the window, watching as snow continued to fall, blanketing the grounds in pristine white. Somewhere out there in the darkness, beyond the high walls and security cameras, was the world she'd come from. Cold, unforgiving, indifferent to the struggles of a teenage mother and her baby. In here was warmth, safety, opportunity. But at what cost? The next morning, Sophia woke to find a large manila envelope had been slipped under her door during the night. Inside were legal documents, the formal adoption agreement Vincent had proposed, along with financial provisions that made her eyes widen. A monthly allowance that was more than she'd ever earned in her life. A college fund for Isabella, health care, even a separate education fund for Sophia herself. Also included was a non-disclosure agreement that sent a chill down her spine with its explicit penalties for revealing anything about Vincent's business or personal affairs. Sophia spent the day wandering the mansion, while Elena watched Isabella, trying to imagine what life would be like if she accepted Vincent's offer. The house was like a small kingdom, with different wings serving different purposes. The east wing, where Vincent proposed they would live, was the warmest and most inviting area, with large windows overlooking gardens that would bloom beautifully in spring. She encountered various staff members going about their duties, the stern-faced security personnel, always watchful, the efficient household staff who treated her with cautious respect, and occasionally men in expensive suits who regarded her with barely concealed curiosity. In the late afternoon, Sophia found herself in a part of the house she hadn't explored before. Pushing open a door, she froze at the sight before her. It was a nursery, exquisitely decorated with hand-painted walls depicting a whimsical garden. Butterflies and birds seemed to flutter across a backdrop of flowers and trees. The furniture was white with delicate gold accents, a crib with a gauzy canopy, a changing table, a rocking chair with plush cushions. It was the nursery Vincent had mentioned, the one Catherine had prepared for the baby she never got to hold. "You shouldn't be in here." Sophia whirled to find Vincent standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I was just exploring, and—" "This room is kept locked," Vincent said, his voice dangerously soft. "How did you get in?" "The door was open, I swear." Sophia took a step back, suddenly very aware of how isolated this part of the house was. "I didn't mean to intrude." Vincent's gaze swept over the room, lingering on the empty crib. Something in his face shifted, the cold anger melting into a grief so palpable it made Sophia's chest ache. "She painted the walls herself," he said quietly. "Spent weeks on it. Wouldn't let anyone help her, not even when she could barely stand because of the pregnancy." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She was the most stubborn woman I've ever known." Sophia remained still, afraid that any movement might shatter this moment of unexpected vulnerability. "What was she like?" she asked softly. Vincent was silent for so long that Sophia thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved into the room, running his fingers along the edge of the changing table. "Catherine was light," he said finally. In a world full of darkness and compromise, she remained untouched by it all. Not naive, she knew exactly who I was, what I did. But she believed people could change, that love could transform even the most hardened heart. He glanced at Sophia. "A romantic notion. Do "Do you think she was wrong?" Sophia ventured. Vincent's expression hardened again. "She's dead. So yes, I think her optimism was misplaced." He gestured toward the door. "We should go. This room is preserved as she left it." Sophia nodded and moved toward the exit, but paused at the threshold. "Mr. Blackwood, I've been thinking about your offer." "And?" His face gave nothing away. "If I accept, would she ever know the truth about her parentage?" Vincent considered this. "I believe in honesty within these walls, Ms. Martinez. Lies have a way of destroying foundations. Isabella would know you are her biological mother. As she grows older, she would learn the circumstances that brought you here, in an age-appropriate way. And what about your business? Would she be exposed to that side of your life?" A flash of something, anger, respect, crossed Vincent's features. "You're concerned about the moral environment in which your daughter would be raised." It wasn't a question, but Sophia nodded anyway. "My business dealings are kept separate from my home life," Vincent said carefully. "Catherine insisted upon that, and I've maintained that division. Isabella would be raised with certain understandings about loyalty, discretion, and family, but she would not be exposed to the more unsavory aspects until she's old enough to understand the complexities of our world." "Our world," Sophia repeated. "If I accept your offer, it becomes our world, doesn't it? Not just Isabella's, but mine too." Vincent studied her with new interest. "Yes, Ms. Martinez, that's precisely what it means." The final day of Sophia's designated week arrived, crisp and clear after days of snow. She spent the morning with Isabella, playing with her on a soft blanket spread across the floor of their suite, marveling at how her daughter seemed to have bloomed in this environment, her smiles more frequent, her curious eyes brighter, her little body stronger. "What do you think, Bella?" Sophia whispered, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Should we stay in this strange new world?" Isabella responded by grabbing a fistful of Sophia's hair and gurgling happily. A knock at the door announced Mrs. Holland, who informed Sophia that Vincent wished to see her in the rose garden at noon. "For lunch," the housekeeper added, "Elena will watch the baby." The rose garden, dormant now in winter, but protected within a large glass conservatory, was warm and humid compared to the frozen landscape outside. Vincent was already seated at a small table set for two, reading something on a tablet that he set aside as Sophia approached. "Ms. Martinez," he greeted her, rising politely. "Mr. Blackwood." Sophia took the offered seat, noticing the elaborate lunch spread before them. Artfully arranged salads, crusty bread, what appeared to be salmon with some kind of sauce, and a bottle of wine already open and breathing. "Today marks the end of our agreed-upon week," Vincent said, filling a water glass for her. "Have you reached a decision regarding my proposal?" Sophia took a deep breath. She had spent days weighing the options, considering what would be best for Isabella, and trying to reconcile the man Vincent presented himself to be with the reputation that preceded him. "Before I answer, I have conditions of my own," she said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Vincent's eyebrows rose slightly, but he gestured for her to continue. "If I agree to this arrangement and you legally adopt Isabella, I need your word that she will always be protected, not just from outside threats, but from your business. I don't want her growing up to be part of that world." "Noted," Vincent said neutrally. "Continue." "I want to finish my education, high school, then college. I had planned to study nursing before—" She gestured vaguely. "Easily arranged. Anything else?" Sophia hesitated, then forced herself to meet his gaze directly. "I need to know that I'm not trading one form of imprisonment for another, that Isabella and I will have freedom within reasonable safety constraints." A flicker of something that might have been respect crossed Vincent's face. "You're concerned about becoming a prisoner in a gilded cage, yes?" Vincent was silent for a moment, considering her words. "Your conditions are acceptable, with certain practical limitations. Isabella's safety will always be the priority, which means security protocols must be followed, but within those parameters, you will not be a prisoner here." He reached into an inner pocket of his suit jacket and withdrew a small velvet box, placing it on the table between them. "What is that?" Sophia asked warily. Open it." With hesitant fingers, Sophia lifted the lid of the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring nestled on black velvet, a large central stone surrounded by smaller diamonds in an intricate platinum setting. "I don't understand," she said, looking up at Vincent in confusion. "If Isabella is to be my daughter, my heir, certain appearances must be maintained," Vincent explained, his tone matter of fact. "The world outside these walls must believe a particular narrative, that you and I met, fell in love, married, and are raising our child together." Sophia stared at the ring, then back at Vincent, shock evident on her face. "You want to pretend we're married?" "I'm proposing an actual legal marriage," Vincent corrected, "with clear prenuptial agreements and understanding of the arrangement's nature, of course. The papers you were given include those details. But why? Why go to such lengths?" Vincent leaned forward slightly. "Consider the alternatives, Sophia. If Isabella is presented as my adopted daughter, questions will arise. People will investigate your background, wonder why a man in my position would adopt the child of a teenage mother from Pilsen. They might suspect the truth, that she is a convenient replacement for the daughter I lost." His voice remained steady, but Sophia could see the pain those words caused him. "On the other hand, if we present a united front as husband and wife, a young beautiful woman who captured the heart of a widower, the world sees exactly what we want them to see. Isabella is accepted without question as my legitimate heir and daughter." Sophia's mind raced. A marriage of convenience to one of Chicago's most dangerous men had never been part of her desperate plan. "This wouldn't be," she began, unsure how to phrase her concern. "A real marriage in the traditional sense?" Vincent finished for her. "No, you would have your own suite of rooms. This is a business arrangement, Ms. Martinez, albeit an unconventional one." Sophia stared at the ring, its diamonds catching the winter sunlight streaming through the conservatory glass. "And if I refuse this part of the arrangement?" Vincent's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. "Then we return to your original proposal. I adopt Isabella, and you move on with your life, with a generous financial settlement to ease your way." The thought of leaving Isabella, of walking away and starting over somewhere else, knowing her daughter was being raised by Vincent Blackwood, it made Sophia's chest constrict with physical pain. "I need to think," she said, closing the ring box with a decisive snap. "Of course." Vincent gestured to the lunch spread. "Shall we eat while you consider?" The meal passed in strained silence, Sophia picking at the exquisite food without really tasting it, her mind churning with impossible choices. Vincent ate with methodical precision, occasionally checking his phone when it vibrated silently against the table. As they finished, he rose. "I have business to attend to. You have until dinner to provide your answer. 7 o'clock, in the main dining room." He paused. "Whatever you decide, Sophia, know that Isabella will be cared for." That was always the point of this exercise, wasn't it? After he left, Sophia remained in the conservatory, surrounded by dormant roses that would bloom again in spring. The ring box sat on the table before her, a glittering symbol of a life she never imagined for herself. What kind of existence would it be, living as Vincent Blackwood's wife in name only, playing a role for the outside world, raising Isabella in luxury and privilege, but always aware of the dangerous currents flowing beneath the surface of their carefully constructed facade? Yet the alternative, walking away, leaving Isabella behind, returning to the desperate struggle of her former life, was unthinkable. Sophia made her decision. At precisely 7 o'clock, dressed in a simple black dress provided by Mrs. Holland, Sophia entered the main dining room. Vincent was already there, standing by the fireplace with a drink in hand. He turned as she entered, his gaze sharp and assessing. Sophia took a deep breath and held out her closed fist. When she opened her fingers, the diamond ring lay in her palm, catching the firelight. "Yes," she said simply, "I accept your terms, all of them, with the conditions I outlined." Vincent set his drink aside and approached her, taking the ring from her palm. With surprising gentleness, he slid it onto her finger. It was slightly loose, but the weight of it felt significant, a physical manifestation of the commitment she was making, not to the man before her, but to the future of her child. "We'll have it sized properly tomorrow," Vincent said, his voice businesslike despite the intimate gesture. "The legal documents will be finalized by the end of the week. We'll be married in a small private ceremony here at the estate next month, with a carefully selected guest list to establish the narrative." Sophia nodded, her throat tight with emotion. Not joy or love, but a complex mixture of relief, fear, and determination. "In public, we will present as a devoted couple," Vincent continued. "In private, we will maintain a respectful partnership focused on Isabella's well-being. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear," Sophia confirmed. "Good." Vincent gestured toward the dining table, already set for two. "Shall we discuss the practical details over dinner?" As Sophia took her seat across from the man who would soon be her husband in name only, she wondered what Catherine would think of this arrangement. Would she understand Sophia's choice to enter this strange, calculated marriage for the sake of her daughter? Would she approve of Vincent's attempt to fulfill his promise through such unconventional means? The days that followed passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Sophia was measured for an entirely new wardrobe, designer clothes, shoes, accessories befitting the wife of Vincent Blackwood. Her hair was styled, her nails manicured, her skin treated with expensive products to erase the signs of stress and poor nutrition. Isabella was similarly outfitted with the finest baby clothes, toys, and equipment. The blue guest room was transformed into a temporary nursery, while a permanent suite in the east wing was renovated to Sophia's specifications, a process Vincent insisted she oversee personally. "It will be your home," he said simply, when she questioned why her opinion mattered. "You should have it arranged to your liking." A cover story was carefully constructed and disseminated through Vincent's extensive network, how the young widower had met Sophia at a charity event 6 months after his wife's death. Their whirlwind romance conducted largely in private, as Vincent protected his new love from public scrutiny. Their intimate wedding planned for Valentine's Day. Sophia was coached on her new identity, no longer Sophia Martinez, high school dropout and struggling single mother, but Sophia Blackwood, educated at private schools, from a modest but respectable family, now devoted wife and mother. She was briefed on Vincent's legitimate business interests, introduced to key staff members and associates who would expect her to play the role convincingly. Through it all, Vincent remained courteous but distant, their interactions limited to discussions about Isabella or the practical arrangements of their unusual partnership. He spent most of his time in his study or away from the house entirely, returning late and leaving early, a shadow at the periphery of Sophia's new life. The night before their wedding, Sophia stood in Catherine's nursery, soon to be Isabella's nursery, gazing at the hand-painted walls and the soft glow of a night light. Isabella slept peacefully in her arms, unaware of the momentous changes taking place around her. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," Sophia whispered to the silent room, running a gentle finger along Isabella's cheek. "I hope someday you'll understand why I made this choice." "She will." Sophia turned to find Vincent standing in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted against the hallway light. He looked exhausted, his usual immaculate appearance slightly rumpled, as if he'd been running his hands through his hair. "I didn't mean to intrude," he said, moving to leave. "No, it's okay," Sophia said quickly. "We were just saying good night to the butterflies." Vincent hesitated, then entered the room, his gaze moving from Isabella to the painted walls. "Catherine would be pleased to know the nursery will be used as she intended. I can choose a different room if this one is too—" "No," Vincent interrupted. "No, this is right. This room was created with love for a baby girl. It should be Isabella's." He reached out, his fingers hovering near Isabella's sleeping form without quite touching her. "May I?" Sophia nodded and carefully transferred Isabella into Vincent's arms. He held the baby with surprising competence, adjusting her against his chest with gentle movements. "I held my daughter only once before she died," he said softly, his eyes fixed on Isabella's peaceful face. "She was so small, so perfect. I promised her I would have been a good father, given the chance." The raw vulnerability in his voice made Sophia's chest tighten. In that moment, She didn't see Vincent Blackwood, the crime lord, but simply a man who had suffered an unbearable loss. "You'll get that chance now," she said gently, "with Isabella." Vincent looked up, meeting Sophia's gaze with unexpected intensity. "I meant what I said, Sophia. Isabella will be protected from external threats, from my business, from anything that might harm her. She will have every opportunity, every advantage, and so will you." "I know," Sophia said, surprised to realize she truly believed him. "That's why I'm still here." They stood in silence for a moment, the sleeping baby creating a bridge between them, a tangible manifestation of their unusual alliance. "Tomorrow, we become a family in the eyes of the world," Vincent said finally. "A fabrication built on necessary lies, but with one fundamental truth at its core: Isabella's well-being is paramount to us both." Sophia nodded, unexpected emotion making it difficult to speak. "Rest well," Vincent said, carefully returning Isabella to Sophia's arms. "Tomorrow will be a long day." As he turned to leave, Sophia called after him softly, "Vincent?" He paused, looking back at her. "For what it's worth, I think Catherine was right about you." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or a flicker of the man he might have been in another life. Then the mask slipped back into place, and with a slight nod, he was gone, leaving Sophia alone with her daughter and the painted butterflies that seemed to flutter in the dim light, as if preparing to take flight into an uncertain future. The wedding was a small but elegant affair, held in the conservatory with only a handful of carefully selected guests: Vincent's closest associates, a few legitimate business partners, his sister, and her husband, a judge who performed the ceremony with dignified efficiency. Sophia wore a simple white dress that managed to be both modest and striking, her dark hair arranged in soft waves. Isabella nestled in her arms throughout the brief service. Vincent played his part perfectly, gazing at Sophia with convincing affection, his hand warm and steady as he slipped a platinum band alongside the diamond engagement ring. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent kissed her with practiced restraint, not too passionate to be improper, not too distant to be suspicious. Photographs were taken, champagne was poured, congratulations were offered. Through it all, Sophia smiled and nodded and spoke the lines she'd been coached to deliver, all while maintaining a careful mental distance from the surreal performance. "You're doing admirably," Vincent murmured at one point, his arm around her waist as they posed for yet another picture. "Just a little longer." By evening, the guests had departed, leaving Sophia, Vincent, and Isabella alone in the vast house that was now officially their family home. They stood in the entrance hall, the silence between them heavy with unspoken thoughts. "Well, Mrs. Blackwood," Vincent said finally, loosening his tie, "our first act is complete." Sophia shifted Isabella to her other arm, suddenly exhausted by the day's emotional performance. "What happens now?" "Now we establish our routines. Tomorrow you'll begin working with a tutor to complete your high school education. Next week we'll make our first public appearance as a family at the opening of a new wing at the Children's Hospital, a project Catherine was passionate about. It was all so organized, so carefully orchestrated. Sophia felt a momentary vertigo at the thought of stepping into this prearranged life, playing a role crafted for her by Vincent and his team. "And us?" she asked, gesturing between them. "How do we live together, day to day?" Vincent considered this. "With mutual respect and clear boundaries. Your suite is your private domain. Mine is similarly off-limits unless invited. We share meals when my schedule permits, present a united front in public, and focus our joint efforts on Isabella's well-being." So businesslike, so transactional. Yet what had Sophia expected? This was never meant to be a love match, never intended to be anything but a practical arrangement for Isabella's benefit. "That sounds reasonable," she said finally. Vincent nodded, seemingly satisfied with their understanding. "I have calls to make. Good night, Sophia." He hesitated, then added, "You made a beautiful bride." Before she could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the depths of the house, leaving Sophia standing in the entrance hall with Isabella, a new ring on her finger, and the weight of her choices settling around her like an invisible cloak. As winter melted into spring, Sophia settled into the rhythm of her new life. Mornings were devoted to Isabella and her education, working with a patient tutor to complete her high school requirements. Afternoons often involved some aspect of her public role as Mrs. Blackwood, charity committee meetings, carefully orchestrated social engagements, fittings for the wardrobe required of Vincent's wife. Vincent himself remained an enigma, present yet distant, attentive in public but reserved in private. He took his role as Isabella's father seriously, spending time with her each evening before dinner, reading to her or simply holding her while reviewing documents. Sophia would sometimes observe them together, struck by the gentle way Vincent's large hands cradled Isabella, the softness that entered his eyes when she grabbed his finger or smiled up at him. Their own relationship developed into a careful partnership. They dined together most evenings, discussing Isabella's development, Sophia's studies, or the safe aspects of Vincent's business interests. He was unfailingly polite, occasionally even warm, but maintained a careful distance that Sophia both appreciated and found oddly disappointing. The public narrative of their whirlwind romance seemed to be accepted without question. Sophia was introduced into Chicago society as Vincent's adored young wife, the mother of his child, the woman who had brought light back into his life after tragedy. She played her part convincingly, standing by his side at galas and charity events, smiling for photographs, making appropriate small talk with the wives of his associates. It was during one such event, a benefit for the Children's Hospital 3 months after their wedding, that Sophia first glimpsed the darker aspects of Vincent's world. She was returning from the ladies' room when she overheard Vincent's voice from a small antechamber off the main hallway. The door was slightly ajar, and his tone, cold and lethal in a way she had never heard before, stopped her in her tracks. "This is not a negotiation, Donovan," Vincent was saying, his voice so quiet Sophia had to strain to hear it. "You accepted my protection. You operate in my territory. You play my rules. The merchandise you're moving through the docks, it stops now. I don't deal in that, and neither does anyone under my umbrella." "It's profitable, Blackwood," another voice responded, tense with barely controlled fear. "The market—" "I don't care about the market," Vincent cut him off. "This isn't about profit. It's about lines that don't get crossed. Children, Donovan, you're trafficking children." Sophia's blood ran cold. "It's business," the man called Donovan protested weakly. "Just business. Not in my city." Vincent's voice dropped even lower, becoming something barely human. "You have 24 hours to shut it down and provide the locations of every child currently in the pipeline. After that, I can't guarantee your continued breathing privileges. Am I perfectly clear?" "Crystal," Donovan muttered. "Good. Now, get out of my sight before I forget we're in polite company." Sophia hurried away before the door could open fully, her heart pounding. By the time Vincent rejoined her at their table, she had composed herself, smiling at his approach and accepting the glass of water he brought her with steady hands. But later that night, as they rode home in silence in the back of his luxury car, Sophia found herself studying Vincent's profile in the intermittent glow of passing streetlights. This man who read bedtime stories to Isabella with infinite patience, who ensured Sophia had everything she needed for her studies, who presented himself to the world as the devoted husband and father. He was also capable of threatening a man's life with such casual menace that Sophia had no doubt he meant every word. "Is something on your mind?" Vincent asked, not turning from the window. "I overheard you," Sophia said after a moment's hesitation. "With that man, Donovan." Vincent went very still. "I see. You were threatening him because he's trafficking children." Now Vincent did turn to look at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Yes." Sophia swallowed hard. "Would you have killed him if he refused?" "Yes." No hesitation, no attempt to soften the truth. "But you're not involved in that kind of thing." "Human trafficking?" Vincent clarified. "No, never. There are lines I don't cross, Sophia. That's one of them. But you do other things," she pressed. illegal things, violent things. Vincent was silent for a long moment. "You knew who I was when you came to my gate," he said finally. "When you offered me your child." The reminder stung, but Sophia couldn't deny its truth. "I thought I knew," she admitted. "But living with it, seeing it up close, it's different. Are you having second thoughts about our arrangement?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Was she? The past 3 months had given Isabella security, opportunity, even love from the most unexpected source. Sophia herself had more freedom, more potential for the future than she'd ever dreamed possible. "No," she said finally. I need to understand who you really are, beyond the public persona and the private man I see with Isabella." Vincent's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That may take time, Sophia. I've spent decades building walls that don't easily come down." "We have time," she said simply. "That's part of our arrangement, isn't it?" Something flashed in Vincent's eyes, surprise perhaps, or a fleeting emotion Sophia couldn't name. Then he nodded once, returning his gaze to the window as the car turned through the gates of their estate. "Indeed we do, Mrs. Blackwood," he murmured. "Indeed we do." As spring bloomed into summer, the carefully constructed facade of the Blackwood family developed unexpected cracks, not in their public presentation, but in the private boundaries they had established. Vincent began joining Sophia and Isabella for breakfast, arriving in the sunny morning room with the day's newspaper and a rare smile that transformed his usually stern features. He took an interest in Sophia's studies, recommending books beyond her curriculum, engaging her in discussions about literature and history that revealed a depth of education she hadn't expected. For her part, Sophia found herself lingering in Vincent's study in the evenings, ostensibly to share updates about Isabella, but often staying to discuss her day, her thoughts, her growing confidence in her new role. She discovered that beneath his controlled exterior was a man of surprising complexity, well-read, thoughtful, even capable of dry humor that caught her off guard and drew genuine laughter. Their carefully separate lives began to intertwine in subtle ways. Vincent's business calls would pause when Sophia entered a room with Isabella, his focus shifting entirely to his daughter with a devotion that never failed to move Sophia. She found herself watching for his car in the evenings, experiencing a flutter of anticipation when he arrived home earlier than expected. The pretense of their marriage, performed so convincingly for the outside world, began to blur at the edges as genuine regard grew between them. Then came the night that changed everything. Sophia was awakened at 2 a.m. by urgent voices in the hallway outside her suite. Slipping on a robe, she opened her door to find Mrs. Holland directing several security personnel with uncharacteristic agitation. "What's happening?" Sophia asked, her pulse quickening at the tension evident in the normally composed housekeeper's face. Mrs. Holland hesitated, then said simply, "Mr. Blackwood has been injured. Dr. Reeves is on her way." Sophia's blood ran cold. "How badly? Where is he?" "In his study, Mrs. Blackwood, but I don't think—" Sophia was already moving, hurrying down the corridor toward the west wing, her heart hammering against her ribs. The door to Vincent's study was open, revealing a tableau that stopped her breath. Vincent slumped in his leather chair, his white shirt stained crimson, Marco applying pressure to a wound in his shoulder, while another man Sophia recognized as Vincent's head of security spoke urgently into a phone. "Vincent!" she gasped, rushing forward before anyone could stop her. His eyes, clouded with pain but still alert, found hers. "Sophia, you shouldn't be here." "What happened?" she demanded, kneeling beside his chair, her hands hovering uselessly over his blood-soaked shirt. "Business disagreement," Vincent said, his voice strained but steady. "Nothing for you to worry about." "Nothing to— You're bleeding all over your imported carpet." The fear made her voice sharper than intended. A ghost of a smile touched Vincent's pale lips. "The carpet is replaceable." "So are you," Sophia retorted, then immediately regretted her words when Vincent's eyes widened slightly in surprise. Before he could respond, Dr. Reeves arrived in a flurry of efficient movement, medical bag in hand. "Everyone out except Marco," she ordered, already pulling on surgical gloves. "I'm staying," Sophia said firmly. Dr. Reeves gave her a measuring look, then nodded. "Fine, but stay out of my way." The next hour was a blur of tense activity as Dr. Reeves extracted a bullet from Vincent's shoulder, stitched the wound, and administered antibiotics and painkillers. Throughout the procedure, Vincent remained conscious, his jaw clenched against the pain, his eyes often finding Sophia's as if drawing strength from her presence. When it was finally over, Vincent was pale but stable, his shoulder bandaged, his ruined shirt replaced with a loose t-shirt that made him look oddly vulnerable. "Bed rest for at least 48 hours, Dr. Reeves instructed, as she packed up her equipment. "No business meetings, no phone calls, nothing that raises your blood pressure. You lost a significant amount of blood, Vincent. You need to recover." "I'll make sure he follows orders," Sophia promised. Dr. Reeves raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Good luck with that." After the doctor left, the security team withdrew to the hallway, leaving Sophia alone with Vincent. She helped him to his feet, supporting his weight, as they made their way slowly to his bedroom suite, a space she had never entered before. The room was masculine and understated, with dark wood furniture, navy bedding, and windows overlooking the rear gardens. Sophia helped Vincent into bed, arranging pillows to support his injured shoulder, then stood awkwardly at the bedside, suddenly unsure of her role. "Thank you," Vincent said quietly. "You didn't have to stay." "Of course I did." The words came automatically, surprising them both with their conviction. "Why?" The simple question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning beyond its single syllable. Why had she rushed to his side? Why had she insisted on staying? Why did the sight of his blood make her feel like the world was collapsing? "Because we're—" Sophia hesitated, searching for the right word. "Partners, co-parents, friends?" "Married," Vincent supplied, a ghost of amusement in his pain-clouded eyes. "Yes," Sophia said softly. "But it's more than that, isn't it? Over these past months, we've become—" Again she faltered, unable to define the complex relationship that had evolved between them. "Something real," Vincent finished for her. "Something neither of us anticipated." Sophia nodded, a lump forming in her throat. "I was so scared when Mrs. Holland said you were hurt. All I could think was that Isabella needs you, that I—" She stopped abruptly. Vincent's hand found hers, his fingers wrapping around hers with surprising gentleness. "I'm not easily killed, Sophia." "This time," she said, unable to keep the fear from her voice. "But what about next time? Or the time after that? Your business, Vincent. It's dangerous. There are people who want to hurt you." "That has always been true," he acknowledged. "It's the world I live in." "It's the world we live in now," Sophia corrected. "Me and Isabella. Your choices affect us too." Vincent's expression sobered. "You're right, of course. I've been compartmentalizing, keeping my business separate from our home life, as Catherine always insisted. But perhaps that's no longer possible. Now that Isabella is here, now that you're here." The raw honesty in his voice made Sophia's chest tighten. She sat carefully on the edge of the bed, still holding his hand. "What happened tonight? The truth, Vincent." He was silent for a moment, studying her face as if making a decision. Then, "Donovan," he said simply. "He didn't appreciate my intervention in his business interests." The human trafficking. Sophia remembered. "You stopped him," Vincent nodded. "I did more than stop him. I dismantled his entire operation, freed the children in his pipeline, and ensured the appropriate authorities were notified anonymously. He lost millions and will likely face federal charges if they can build a case." "So he tried to kill you." "He tried," Vincent agreed, a cold smile touching his lips. "He failed, and now he'll face the consequences." The implication was clear. Sophia should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual mention of violence and retribution. Instead, she felt a surprising surge of something like vindication. "Good," she said, the word escaping before she could censor it. Vincent's eyebrows rose slightly. "Good?" "He was hurting children," Sophia said simply. "He deserves whatever happens to him." Something shifted in Vincent's expression. Surprise, respect, perhaps even admiration. You continue to surprise me, Sophia Blackwood. The use of her married name sent an unexpected warmth through her. Is that a good thing? It's refreshing, Vincent admitted. Most people in my world are tediously predictable. You never have been, not from the moment you appeared at my gate with Isabella in your arms. Sophia smiled, remembering that desperate night that now seemed like a lifetime ago. I was terrified you'd have your men throw me out. Or worse. I almost did, Vincent confessed, until I saw Isabella's face. His expression softened. She looked so much like the daughter I lost. It was the first time he had spoken so directly about his grief since their conversation in Catherine's nursery months ago. Sophia squeezed his hand gently, encouraging him to continue. When Catherine died, I wanted to follow her, Vincent said, his voice barely above a whisper. The only thing that kept me functioning was the thought of our daughter, the piece of Catherine that remained. And then she was gone too, and He paused, struggling for words. I became someone Catherine would have hated, cold, ruthless, without mercy. And now? Sophia asked softly. Vincent's eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. Now I find myself wanting to be the man Catherine believed I could be, the father Isabella deserves. The husband. He stopped, something flickering in his gaze that made Sophia's pulse quicken. Vincent, she began, not sure what she wanted to say, only knowing that something important was happening between them, something that transcended their careful arrangement. A soft cry from the baby monitor on the nightstand interrupted the moment. Isabella, waking for her middle-of-the-night feeding. I should go to her, Sophia said, reluctantly releasing Vincent's hand. Go, he nodded. But Sophia, he caught her wrist as she stood. We'll finish this conversation when I'm not half delirious from blood loss and painkillers. The promise in his voice, in his eyes, stayed with Sophia as she tended to Isabella, as she finally returned to her own bed as dawn broke over the estate. Something had fundamentally shifted between them, some invisible barrier breached by bullet wounds and midnight confessions. Whatever came next, she realized as sleep finally claimed her. Their carefully constructed arrangement had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, something real, something fragile, something potentially beautiful in its unexpected complexity. And for the first time since arriving at Vincent Blackwood's gate, on that snowy December night, Sophia found herself not just accepting her new reality, but embracing the possibility of what it might become. The weeks following Vincent's injury marked a subtle but significant transformation in the Blackwood household. As Vincent recovered, Sophia took on more responsibilities, overseeing household matters, rescheduling appointments, even sitting in on certain legitimate business meetings that couldn't be postponed. Vincent, confined to the house on doctor's orders, spent more time with Isabella, forming a bond that grew visibly stronger each day. Sophia would often find them together in the nursery or library, Vincent reading to the now 7-month-old baby or simply watching in wonder as she mastered new skills, sitting up unassisted, reaching for toys, babbling her first proto-words. More surprisingly, the invisible wall between Sophia and Vincent's private spaces began to dissolve. She would bring him tea in his study, lingering to discuss a book she was reading for her courses. He would join her in the nursery, watching as she bathed Isabella or put her to bed. Their conversations grew deeper, more personal, extending beyond Isabella or household matters to their pasts, their hopes, their views on life. One evening, nearly a month after the shooting, Sophia was curled in an armchair in Vincent's study, a textbook open on her lap, but her attention drawn to the man behind the desk. Vincent was reviewing documents, his reading glasses perched on his nose, his injured arm now free of the sling, but still handled with care. The domesticity of the scene struck her suddenly, how far they had come from their initial businesslike arrangement. "Vincent," she said abruptly, causing him to look up with raised eyebrows. "What are we doing?" He removed his glasses, setting them carefully on the desk. "You'll need to be more specific, Sophia." "This?" she gestured between them. "Us? We started with such clear boundaries, such defined roles, but now—" She trailed off, unsure how to articulate the complex evolution of their relationship. Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying her with those perceptive gray eyes. "Now the lines have blurred," he finished for her. "You're questioning whether our original arrangement still applies." "Yes," Sophia admitted. "Everything feels different since that night. Since you were hurt." Vincent was silent for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Near-death experiences have a way of clarifying priorities," he said finally. "When I was sitting in that chair, bleeding and uncertain if help would arrive in time, do you know what I thought about?" Sophia shook her head. "Not my business empire, not my enemies. I thought about Isabella, about how I might never see her take her first steps or hear her first word." His gaze locked with Sophia's. "And I thought about you, about all the conversations we'd never have, all the things left unsaid between us." Sophia's breath caught at the raw honesty in his voice. "What things?" Vincent rose from his desk and crossed to where she sat, taking the book from her lap and setting it aside. He knelt before her chair, his injured shoulder apparently forgotten, as he took her hands in his. "That somewhere along the way, this marriage of convenience became something else entirely. That when I see you with Isabella, when I watch you studying so determinedly for your future, when you challenge me with questions no one else would dare ask, I find myself wondering what Catherine would think." "And?" Sophia whispered, her heart hammering. A smile, rare and genuine, touched Vincent's lips. "I think she would be pleased. She always believed I needed someone who could see past the armor I've built, someone who could remind me there's more to life than power and control." His thumb traced circles on the back of Sophia's hand. "I never expected that person to be you." "I never expected any of this," Sophia confessed. "When I came here, I was desperate, thinking only of Isabella's future. I thought I was sacrificing my happiness for hers. But now—" "Now?" Vincent prompted when she hesitated. "Now I'm not sure it was a sacrifice at all." The admission left her feeling vulnerable, exposed in a way their legal arrangement never had. This wasn't about contracts or conditions or playing roles for the outside world. This was real, uncertain, terrifying in its potential. Vincent's expression softened. "Sophia, I'm not an easy man. My world is complicated, often dangerous. The business I'm in doesn't lend itself to traditional domestic happiness." "I know that," she said firmly. "I've always known that." "But," he prompted, reading her expression with unnerving accuracy. "But I think I want to try anyway," Sophia said, the words coming more easily now. "Not just for Isabella's sake, but for ours, to see what this could become if we stopped pretending it's just an arrangement." Vincent's hand moved to cup her cheek, his touch gentle in a way that still surprised her. "You deserve better than a man with my history, my business, my demons." "I deserve to make my own choices," Sophia countered. "And I'm choosing this, choosing you, choosing us as a real family, not just the illusion we've created for the world." Something shifted in Vincent's eyes, a vulnerability, a hope he rarely allowed himself to feel. "Then we try," he said simply. Together." The kiss that followed was unlike their wedding kiss, not a performance for witnesses, but something private and real, tentative at first, then deeper as Sophia's hands found their way to Vincent's shoulders, careful of his injury. When they finally parted, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "Catherine used to say that life has a way of giving you what you need, not what you think you want," he murmured. "I didn't understand what she meant until now." Sophia smiled, feeling a strange connection to the woman she'd never met, but whose presence still lingered in the house they shared. "I think she would be happy to know that Isabella has a real family, unconventional as it may be." "I think," Vincent said, drawing Sophia to her feet and into his arms, "she orchestrated this from beyond the grave. She always was stubborn about getting her way." The laugh that escaped Sophia felt like release, like permission to embrace this unexpected happiness. As Vincent's arms tightened around her, she thought about the desperate young mother who had stood trembling at the gates of this estate last December, offering her baby to a stranger out of love and desperation. That woman could never have imagined this outcome. Not just security for her child, but a second chance at love, at family, at a future built on the most unlikely of foundations. "Vincent," she whispered against his chest, "take me to bed." His heartbeat quickened beneath her ear. "Are you certain?" Sophia lifted her head to meet his gaze. "Completely." Later, as moonlight spilled through the windows of Vincent's bedroom, their bedroom now, Sophia traced lazy patterns on his chest, marveling at the turn her life had taken. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Vincent's fingers tangled in her hair, his expression more peaceful than she'd ever seen it. "We continue as we have been in public, the devoted Blackwood family. In private, we build something real, something that's ours alone. And your business." The question had to be asked, the shadow that would always loom over their happiness. Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Some aspects can be adjusted," he said carefully. "Others cannot be abandoned without creating power vacuums that would be filled by men far worse than me." It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was honest. Sophia nodded against his chest. "I can live with that, as long as Isabella remains protected from that world." "Always," Vincent promised. "And you? Your education, your goals?" "I still want to finish school, maybe pursue nursing eventually," Sophia said. "Just because we're changing the nature of our relationship doesn't mean I'm abandoning my plans for the future." Vincent smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I would expect nothing less." "You're a remarkable woman, Sophia Blackwood." The name no longer felt like a role she was playing, but her identity, not because she had married Vincent, but because she had chosen this life, this family, this future with open eyes and a full heart. As sleep began to claim her, Sophia thought again of that snowy night in December, of the desperate prayers she had whispered as she'd pressed the intercom button. Please let this be the right choice for Isabella. It had been the right choice, not just for Isabella, but for Sophia herself. In seeking a protector for her daughter, she had found an unexpected second chance at the family she'd always wanted, with a man whose complexities matched her own determination. Life had indeed given her what she needed, not what she thought she wanted. And in the arms of Chicago's most feared man, Sophia Blackwood had found something she never expected to discover in this imposing mansion. Home. In the nursery down the hall, beneath hand-painted butterflies that seemed to dance in the moonlight, Isabella slept peacefully, unaware that her future had been secured not just by legal documents and financial provisions, but by something far more powerful and enduring, love in all its unexpected forms.